Welcome to this edition of On the Line with AgriLife. Today, join us and special guest Jeff Hasbrook with Double J Lamb, Texas, as we discuss the reopening of the processing plant here in San Angelo, Texas. Excited to have you and have Double J on the line to talk about the new processing plant that y'all are going to be reopening in San Angelo. So before we kind of dive off into those questions, Jeff, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about y'all's family's history in the lamb industry and maybe your background just a smidge.
So my name is Jeff Hasbrook. We live in Ault, Colorado, which is northern Colorado. We own Double J Lamb Feeders. We also own Double J Meat Packing, which is a small packing plant that's in the town next over to us in Pierce. It's 150 head of buffalo and bison custom a day, up to that, those numbers. Then we do lambs on the side. If somebody calls in and wants a half or whole lamb, or if they want parts, we can do all that stuff for them also. We farm, we used to be bigger farmers in Colorado, 3,500 acres. Back when I was a kid, we always fed lambs, at maybe 15,000 was the max number for us. We fed cattle, a couple 300 head was our max. My dad, back in the, I'm not sure, I'd say late 80s, early 90s, decided that he wanted to be a cattle feeder, and he cut way back on the farming. So we went from 3,500 acres to about 500 acres. He bought a 5,000 head cattle feedlot, and just kind of changed the operation from there. And then years later, in 98, I was stationed in Guam at the time in the Air Force. And there was really never enough room for me to come home and work the family business because it wasn't that big. It was mostly farming and just a little bit of feeding at the time. Well, that's when we bought the old Weber and Weichert lamb feedlot, and that's a 60,000 head feedlot, one-time capacity. So at that time, I had to make a decision: stay in the military or get out. I was a captain in the Air Force at the time. Had a real rough 5 years that I was in. I was stationed in Tucson, Arizona for 3, and then Guam, which is a tropical island, for 2, a little over 2. So, I guess I couldn't resist coming home and working the family operation.
Well, and feeding in the cold, huh? I mean, nothing
Yes.
like coming back and feeding in below zero temperatures after being in Guam.
Sometimes I wonder why I did this. That's right. So I came home to run the lamb feedlots. Since then, my sister graduated from college a couple years later, and we always wanted to sell quarters, halves, and wholes of beef. We thought that would be a good business, so we started doing that with a little delivery truck and a freezer at the sheep lot, where we could, have some meat stored and stuff like that. And it was okay. I think the first year we lost, $15,000, $20,000. So we're kind of like, well, what are we doing? So anyway, at that time, we had a frozen, so we were doing all natural beef at that time, and we were starting to look into the all natural lamb. So we had an outfit called Town and Country, which is a frozen food service, delivery service, come to us because they knew that we did all natural beef. And they said, we want you to supply all of our beef. They were organic / natural. So what we did is we found that plant that does 150 head a day. We bought that plant. We renovated that plant just to do basically that business. What we didn't realize, we weren't in the meat packing business, ever before. What we didn't realize is in about a month or 2 months while we were under construction, their sirloin steak order was 100 head. And that just for the sirloin steaks. Then we had all the ground beef and everything else. Obviously there's more parts to an animal than just a bunch of sirloin steaks. So we found out real quick, welcome to the meat business. We had to tell them that we cannot service you guys because you outgrew us in a couple of months. So what we did is we kept on with our construction, added on. The plant that we bought was just a little 3 to 5 head per day plant. Mm-hmm. And today it's 150 head a day. So it's a mostly custom. We're booked out, I think, into 2023. Wow. COVID has obviously helped with that kind of stuff. But on our custom side, it's a booming business, and thanks to COVID, it's pushed it even farther out, and it's just hard to get slots. Any packing little packer, I'm sure will tell you, even in Texas or Colorado or surrounding areas, they're all booked for a year or two in advance. So it's crazy.
Well, that's wonderful news for y'all, and congratulations on kind of finding that success story there. So let's move and talk about Double J Lamb here in Texas. So we're excited as a sheep and goat family in Sheep and Goat County. Valverde County used to hold the title. I think we've given that up at this point. Your family has decided to reopen the plant there in San Angelo. Can you kind of share with us why y'all chose that San Angelo plant and what y'all's goals are for that plant?
Sure. So I guess we'll be back in July of last year when Mountain States Rosen was in bankruptcy and they lost that battle and lost that plant. We were members of Mountain States Lamb Co-op, and there was about 145 producer members or producer feeder members. And we felt like, when they closed Mountain States down, they were doing 6,000 to 8,000 head a week, selling carcasses, further fabrication, all that kind of stuff. We felt like we owed that to our customers. We were feeding 150 to 175,000 lambs a year through the feedlot. And we felt like we owed it back to our customers to keep that going and have a place for them to go. And the same thing for Mountain States, for their customers, where that meat was going, where those carcasses were going. At the time, we knew there was a new plant opening up in Brush, but it was going to be basically a harvest only plant, no fab. There's only so much carcass business out there. So we felt like we had to make a move. So we looked into some other plants just on paper. I think there's some plants in Chicago, some old, maybe veal plants, old lamb plants. We knew about the plant in Texas. My dad was on the National Lamb Feeders Board back in the early, or I guess it'd be the late 1990s. When that plant was built in 98, they used to have their meetings in that area. So he was kind of familiar with that plant. And at the time, my wife worked for Mountain States Rosen, and then a buddy of ours, Brad Anderson. So between those two, they kind of did a little bit of research and found that, hey, that plant is for sale. It does 1,900 head a day. And we're like, we've got to go look. So I think it was the 24th of July was the last day that Mountain States Rosen killed anything. And we had county fair coming up. So we said, okay, got to wait till after county fair. My sister's kids, just like you guys are going through your stock show right now.
Yeah.
So the day after county fair was over, we jumped on a plane. We flew to San Angelo, toured the plant. We took a contractor with us from Greeley, from Colorado, that does a lot of work for JBS and did some work for us. We took him down there. We walked through the plant with the real estate agent, and we said, we've got a magic number in mind. If we can stay below that number, it'll be a go. And, be honest with us. Can we turn this thing in? Because showing up there, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd of August. It was 105 degrees outside. There was no AC in the buildings. It hadn't been utilized for, 4 or 5 years. So we took a chance, did the tour, was impressed with the way it looked. The harvest floor was completely intact. The equipment was all there, just perfect. Walked in a little farther, looking around, got into the coolers, noticed they took all the railing out of the coolers. And the reason they did that is the people that owned it prior to us, they wanted to make that a beef grind facility, and they were doing fajita meat and different things like that. So they used some of the cooler space to do packaging, and some of the packaging machines were too tall to bring into the coolers, so they had to cut. So they cut all the rails out of the coolers. So that was very disappointing.
I can imagine.
A little deeper into the plant, and we get into the fabrication room. Nice big room, lots of equipment in there, but it was all the big beef grind equipment they had purchased to do what they were going to do, which was not of any use to us. So we actually sold that equipment to help us with, our phase 2 that I kind of, alluded to earlier. But so we gave the guy a week to put the numbers together. You know, we were impressed with the shape of the plant, and really it's not that old of a facility. It wasn't used that long. So we decided when we got the number back that it was a go. And
that's great.
yeah, we were excited. We spent a lot of time down there just for us, just mowing weeds, you know, chopping trees down. There was a lot of growth around the plant, looking for snakes, all kinds of fun stuff. The previous owners had a lot of equipment that they'd left. So the way that plant is, you unload and it's covered, and there's pins, and the lambs go up on top to a second story, and there's pins up there. The pins were completely full of old equipment, and most of the equipment wasn't even from that plant. It was stuff that looked like they had purchased for whatever reason, and then just stored it there. So the pins were full of equipment. The old rails from the cooler were laying in the pins. Underneath the pins was completely full of equipment. And then there's a nice big shed in back that's like I don't know, it might be 100 by 100. It's completely full of equipment. So we knew we had a big job ahead of us. So, you know, I think we looked at it in August. By September, we had the plant purchased. And from there, we basically started getting what our phase one is get the harvest floor ready. So we knew we had to harvest lambs as soon as possible to pick up a little bit of slack from Superior, from the new plant brush, to help our customers. You know, we didn't want to see 200 plus pound lambs and all that kind of stuff. So our goal was we will take lambs from Colorado down to that plant in Texas, you know, harvest them, sell carcasses. So that's what we're doing currently. And I'll be honest, like, you know, you're bundled up wearing all the clothes. We're having a heck of a time. So 3 weeks ago, it was the weather in New York and New Jersey. We had carcass trailers snowed in. Last week, it was the water situation in San Angelo. So we had to cancel some process or some harvesting for that. And then this week, because of the utilities, they've asked us not to do anything because of the natural gas issues in the state. And, you know, even in Colorado, they're asking us here, hey, please lower your thermostat. This is unprecedented cold weather we're seeing across the country, and supplies are tight. So we understand. So this week, we haven't been able to do anything at all until after Thursday. So we hope to kill some lambs, harvest some lambs on Thursday.
Well, and y'all ran a test on that deal, and y'all bought the floor from Odessa, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, you bought the floor at Odessa and are processing those and process those lambs through the plant?
We will, yes. So like the show lambs and stuff you're talking about, we'll put those on feed for a couple, 3 weeks, and then we'll run those through the plant. Yes, those work great for kosher, because in the kosher process, they want the neck shorn. Obviously, show lambs, that's already done. So we'll run some of those through on kosher and different things we've got. I know one of the big questions is, are you going to do goats?
Yeah.
And I know that's a big question, and we hope to, yes. We've got a project coming up in another week or two where we'll harvest about 450 to 500 goats. And, you know, we're trying to, I guess, get the lamb deal down right before we move on to the goats. Cause, you know, I know they're similar, but, you know, it's a little bit different process. But we just haven't had a lot of experience to this point because of the things we just talked about the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
But we do hope to do goats. One of the nice things is, you know, I've been able to put some of my customers together with maybe some of the producers in Texas. You know, sometimes I've got a guy that'll want maybe some 120, 130 pound lambs. And for me, that's a feeder lamb. So I was able, I think 2 weeks ago to put a guy together with an outfit in Texas to get that 130, 135 pound lambs that he needed. And then hopefully eventually we'll be able to harvest those lambs and further process those lambs. Right. So that's kind of what our phase 2 is. So we're up and harvesting. We're doing lambs, obviously. We hope to do some goats here in the next 2 weeks, and then we hope to develop a program. Phase 2 is going to be the fab. So the further processing of those animals. We've got all the coolers, all the rails put back in the coolers. Obviously, we're utilizing the coolers for the carcasses. And then now we're doing the refrigeration for the fab and the freezers. So we hope to be able to turn on, those freezers the middle of March. And we hope to have our fab room up and running sometime end of March, beginning of April is our goal.
Well, you could just open the doors this week and you'd be plenty fine.
Exactly. That's very true. Very true. You're right. That's a good point.
So you talked a little bit about sourcing lambs from Texas. Is there a way for our producers to get in contact with Double J and you source, are y'all going to be buying or looking for any lambs from our Texas producers in the future and sourcing lambs here in the state of Texas?
Yes, we hope to. We hope that we can develop a grass-fed program. We hope that we can, there's a lot of things that we want to do. And that's obviously one of the big things that we would like to do. At the moment, because of the situation with the feedlot in Colorado and just the time of year, we've got plenty of lambs to supply that. But going forward, there's going to be opportunities for all of us. We want to get into that smaller carcass market, that smaller lamb market. There's some head-on pluck-in type deals that people want to do, especially coming up for Easter. They require some smaller lambs and stuff like that. So yeah, there's different things that we would like to do. We will, as we get more and more and we bump our numbers up, we can incorporate Texas lambs more and more into our operation. And we'd like to feed some lambs in Texas. There's really no reason to we've got lambs in feed in California. There's really not a big reason to bring those to Colorado, then have to ship them to Texas. And we could ship them straight to Texas and feed them there.
Right.
So we've got, some of the show lambs we've got are at Chico's feedlot. We'll probably end up talking to them here in the next couple of weeks to maybe move some of our California lambs to that facility. So we've got them right there. And, just in case the weather, in Colorado, the snowy season is March and April. So it doesn't hurt for us to stage some lambs in that area just in case, roads get closed or stuff like that, because we know that it's going to warm up and be a lot nicer in Texas than it is in Colorado.
We hope so. This is not okay here in Texas. You keep all your Colorado in Colorado.
We're trying, trust me.
And remind me, you said the capacity on that plant is 1,900 a day, or what's the plant here in Texas? What can you kill? What do you hope to kill a day?
Well, it's 1,900 a day, and we don't think we'll ever get up to that 1,900 a day. But our goal is to kill 4,000 or 5,000 a month. We've got a long ways to go. We're interviewing a meat salesman this week that'll kind of help us start moving some of those carcasses and getting ready for our fab opening up in late March, early April. So we've got some things to do to get to those numbers. And maybe it's one of those where we harvest on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, fab on Thursday, Friday. We've got about 50 employees hired already. Some of the people that are working for us, there's a handful of them that used to work at the plant back when it was open in 98, 99, 2000. So that's kind of interesting and kind of neat to have those guys on the floor. But it's 1,900 a day. We hope to be able to do, if we ever got to 4,000 or 5,000 a week, that would be great. That would be great.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have Double J in Texas, and we have been so blessed as an extension to have y'all been so open to talking with us today. We try to keep this program about 15 or 20 minutes. We've got a couple of producers on the line. If y'all have questions, feel free to unmute and ask. But we're excited to have y'all. And thank you so much for partnering with Extension to come on the line this morning. And I'm super excited. Fun fact, a lot of us are related and know each other. And so you also have agreed to be a part of our Youth Agricultural Lifetime Leadership Tour this summer. And we're excited. And I'm going to just brag here for a second. I'll get to come and see Double J Texas and meet with y'all in person. So we're excited about that opportunity for our kiddos to learn a little bit more about the lamb industry coming up this summer as well. So if any of our producers that are on have any questions, feel free to unmute your mic. We'll stay on for about just another minute or two. And thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us. It's been a great chat.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, absolutely.
You guys are welcome to come to the plant. And, We're not up and running every single day, but we do give tours. So even if it's a non-harvest day or whatever, we can sure, run you through it in 15, 20 minutes and show you what we've done and talk to you about any future business. We'd love that.
That's so cool. And I'm going to RSVP. Next time I'm in Colorado, I don't get up there very often, but I'm going to RSVP to come out and see the feedlots there in Colorado too. That'd be super cool to me too.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
I'm going to invite myself.
Nope, everybody's welcome.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It doesn't seem as, I guess you answered all their questions with On the Line. If they have any questions, you're more than welcome to email us. And don't forget to join us next month, the third Tuesday of every month at 8:30. We host an On the Line with AgriLife. And Matlin, I'll let you unmute yourself and talk a little bit about next month's program before we.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you all so much for joining today. Please stay tuned for next month's On the Line with AgriLife on Tuesday, March 16th at 8:30 a.m. That is Tuesday, March 16th at 8:30 a.m. with Dr. Robert Lane. Dr. Lane is a professor with the Department of Agricultural Sciences and Engineering Technology at Sam Houston State University. Dr. Lane is a well-renowned plant scientist and teaches so many courses at Sam Houston State University, including turfgrass science, fruit and vegetable production, soil fertility and fertilizers, and so much more. He will be talking to us about how to maintain and prepare our garden for the spring and summer months. So I'm excited for that. And surely we're definitely going to be doing that after this little winter spell that we've had out here in Texas. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Matlin. And we hope to see everyone next month, third Tuesday of every month at 8:30. You can always check out our website to see the upcoming programs and topics. We try to keep our topics rotate, and we talk about something different every month. So thank you so much, Jeff, and we will see everyone next month.